All right, hello, and welcome to episode 2 of the Two Scrooges Disney Lorcana podcast. I'm Dave, Attackfortwo Solberg, and I'm joined by Scott, Bumi Jr, Alshanski. Scott, how are you doing?
I'm doing great today, Dave. How about you?
I'm doing well. Welcome back.
Yeah,
Start
glad.
off the episode again with a few shout-outs. First to our executive producer, Josh, who behind the scenes is making this possible for us.
Yep. Josh
Uh,
put together the SLTC YouTube channel and put together a wonderful thumbnail for us last week,
and name the podcast.
and named the podcast. He's doing it all.
Yeah, did that for us. Also a shout out to the SLTC, SLTP, which is the podcast for the SLTC. They just dropped another video on the SLTC YouTube channel this week. It's
Yep.
another good one. You should go check that out.
Lots of good banter in there.
Yep.
Few new faces for the group, which is pretty exciting.
Shout out to Justin, Ray, and the rest of the squad for putting together some good set 7 deck lists and getting testing off on a good foot.
Yeah, the deck builders are awesome because I can't cook worth anything at all. I'll start cooking something. I'll get to 85 cards. I'll have not included everything I wanted, and then I'll give up.
Yep. And then lastly, a shout out to the nearly 250 people that watched the first episode of the podcast. Thank you, and we hope you're back for another one.
Yeah, I think you set the over-under at 35 people. And
I was very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, a lot of people were interested in what we had to say.
Yep.
Before we begin, Dave, are you familiar with Statler and Waldorf?
Never heard of either.
Fantastic. Let's continue.
All right. So for our first main topic today, we're going to start with where we start when a new set comes out. So Archazia's Island, we went through our first impressions in the first episode, and now we've gotten down to building some decks and testing some stuff out.
Yep.
Wanted to go through our approach.
Yeah. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
Sure. I've got 2.5 good places to start. So the first and the easiest one is to take the best set 6 decks, or the decks from the previous format, and upgrade them as appropriate. So in my opinion, that would be something like Red Blue, which obviously got Sapphire Coil and the new Tamatoa, or Purple Steel, which proved to be quite strong, particularly the dock version, which now got the Cobra as an addition. The second place that I think is pretty good to start is to take the decks that got the most upgrades from the newest set and got the biggest power boost from the new cards available and play those. A good example of that in this new format that we're walking into would be Blue Steel, which got the new Bell, which synergizes with all the steel cards, and the new Tamatoa, which also similar,
Bell's pretty
has
good.
synergy with those cards. And then the last approach, which probably isn't a good one, but is a understandable one, is to play the deck you were playing last set and you're most comfortable with, which for me is probably Red Purple, and for you is probably Ember Steel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for week 1, while people are still trying to figure out, you could probably just take your best set 6 list, show up to a win-a-box tournament or whatever is going on, the first weekend, and do all right. Your lines, your opponents maybe don't know all their lines yet. And I think that's okay for week 1. And then after that, you really need to adapt and adjust.
Yeah. And the one thing that I would not do is to try and take something that didn't previously exist and build it from scratch.
Okay.
So we said last week that Lady is a quite powerful card. We were impressed with Lady, but the yellow-green aggressive decks don't really exist, in set 6, or haven't previously existed.
Right.
And I would let somebody else figure that out, or let the metagame settle before I dove into something like that. Ruby Steel is another example that got a lot of tools in the new set, but was a bit of ways.
So like you, when new cards are being spoiled and revealed, I like to think about them in the context of the current format. If we just dropped this card into this format, would it shake things up? Would it be good? That's just kind of a good way to start thinking about cards, but not really a good way to start thinking about the next format. Um, and then and then, kind of, and like you mentioned, is taking the decks that exist, seeing what new cards can go into those decks, and starting there. Another approach I like to do though is look for cards that are pretty interesting, or cards that are obviously very busted, or cards that look like they could be good, and saying I'm building a deck with the full amount of these, or however many, and then building around that rather than trying to jam them into something existing. And a lot of the times, like, you'll probably end up with a deck that's similar to, taking an existing deck, cutting a few pieces out and putting these new cards in. But sometimes you'll end up with something, that's actually a lot more exciting. Maybe there's an old card that got better, that you missed before, but is improved with the addition of the new cards.
Yeah, I typically start with minor upgrades to
Hmm.
pre-existing stuff. Otherwise, I would look to play a aggressively or proactive slanted deck
Right.
in the first week of a new event.
Yeah.
The control decks usually come later. I think both of us have got a pretty long history with TCG, so I go back 25 years at this point.
Yeah, I started playing Magic in 2001.
Yeah, so
So
also a very long time.
yeah, also a long time.
Yeah, and almost always the aggressive decks come first. It's easy to have a linear proactive game plan when you don't really know what's going on with the uncertainty of a new format.
Right.
And then as the metagame establishes and the control decks know what they need to target, they can come back into the fold.
Yeah, they can tune their answers quite a bit better, once decks and strategies are known. So
Yep.
yep. So we'll probably see week one is coming up. We'll probably see a lot of proactive, turn them sideways, disrupt them a little bit kind of decks, rising to the top. And we might see red blue and red purple looking like they're falling off. I don't expect that to be the case long term for this side, especially given the tools, that red blue has picked up. But week one might be a really good opportunity to turn them sideways and win some games.
Yeah, I think the DKP Manor Shark version of Red Blue with zero changes is probably still a pretty good deck week one.
Yeah, I'd imagine that'd be the case.
It has been quite powerful. In our testing, there's a lot more Peats floating around because of the rise of blue steel
Mhm.
and green steel getting some tools, which have been a little problematic, but it's certainly something that you can work around
Right. Yeah.
in that capacity. So have you tested any decks yourself, or just still watching?
Still watching. I have cooked up a deck, an Amber Steel aggro deck. That I said, I'm gonna play two Glass Slippers, some number of Cinderellas. And I sent you that link if you wanna bring it up for us. Um, so this list is very similar to previous set stock piles. It's got a few upgrades, what I consider upgrades from previous set. I was not really ever a fan of Lilo. I think the red blue players kind of figured out how to mitigate Lilo pretty effectively. Penny is a card I'm very interested in trying. But this is a deck that I said I'm playing two Glass Slippers. I'm going to play some number of Cinderellas, and I want to see if Glass Slipper is going to work. But I also don't ever want to play and activate Glass Slipper. Like, that's a really mopey kind of line for you to, search out a princess to. Yeah, you get the three lore, but I think I'd rather just bin the slipper with a draw and discard effect, or a discard and draw effect like Simba or Doc, and then draw into Cinderella and play her and gain the three lore that way, and not lose any tempo playing a two cost do nothing.
So you have one set of princes with the Simba
Correct.
that can actually use the slipper. So it looks like the Simba is pulling double duty here. First, he's going to discard your slipper, but then if you were unfortunate enough to draw it late and you had to put it into play, I guess Simba is your prince that you can exert.
Yeah. So Simba probably can stick around, especially if your opponent has like sussed out that you're not playing Pride Protector. They might just leave him alone. And then you can kind of get a surprise slipper activation because he has to be dry to use the slipper. But ideally, you're just playing him, discarding the slipper that you kept with him, and then you draw into the Cinderella later and gain that burst at 3 lore. Same with Doc. Like you can play a line where you have, a slipper is your last card. You discard it with Doc. Like you don't care. You don't want to play that card anyway. You draw 2 new ones. You dig a little closer to the Cinderella. One thing that I think is going to be very important moving forward is Along Came Zeus. Um, there are several cards that you really don't want your opponent to let them dry that have 5 willpower, and Along Came Zeus goes a long way for that. So like Maui Shark and Tamatoa, Happy as a Clam, are the 2 big ones that I'm thinking of. Um, but also, we're looking at a format where Let the Storm Rage On is probably going to be a lot more common. So you need to do something on turn 2 that doesn't just get blown up by Let the Storm Rage On. So Ursula Vanessa is a really good way to set up a singer for Along Came Zeus while developing your board and not letting an opposing bell just take over the game from you. So that's the idea behind that. This list is completely untested, but it has all of the Amber and Steel cards. A lot of the Amber and Steel cards that were good last set. Benja is a good utility 3-drop. I was a fan of John Silver last set, but I think destroying items is going to be a good toolbox or a good tool to have in your tool chest starting out.
Yeah, if the only thing so from looking at this, the things that surprised me are first the 3 copies of Cinderella.
Okay.
That seems like a lot. Maybe it's the right number.
So my idea for including more copies of Cinderella than slippers is if I draw Cinderella before the slippers or before I'm able to discard the slippers, I just want to be able to ink them. Like I don't want to just ink my one Cinderella and then have 2 dead slippers in my deck that are just not going to do anything except hopefully be discarded because now they're literally dead. Maybe
they can find Rapunzel, right?
Yeah, that could be good. But that's not the main reason why they're in there. If I don't know if Rapunzel is as good when she costs 2 more and requires you to exert one of your characters. Still a very good card, but probably not if she costs, probably less good if she costs 6 and some amount of lore for exerting a prince.
I like it a lot. I think if it were me, I'd probably take one Cinderella and play another Vanessa.
I think that's reasonable. Setting up Vanessa as a singer is really good. Cinderella on her own, though, like even if you just have to play her out, isn't the worst thing ever. I'm sure a lot of Amber players like me have just played Cinderellas that don't draw cards just because the 5 willpower and the 2 lore is enough to kind of push you over the edge against challenge or damage based removal decks. So 2/4 is I think a little bit worse than a 1/5 in that regard, but not by so much that that you're going to be super duper unhappy just playing a Cinderella for no value. And she can also set up a Rapunzel next turn if somebody wants to exert their 3 strength character as well.
And I presume the curve for this type of deck is mostly going to be 1, 2, 3, and then 2 2s.
That is typically how I have played my Amber Steel aggro in the past. So yeah, so 1, 2, 3, and then 2 2s has been really good. Sometimes you can go like 1, 2, and 2 1 on 3, and then if you have like a 2 and a Doc, that's like the ideal curve. But 1 2 3 double 2 is usually very good as well.
I like this. This is when I said earlier that you need to be proactive. In the first week of a format, this is the kind of thing
Yeah.
Talking about with all of the answers are catch-all removal cards.
Yeah.
Uh,
There's also a very sneaky tech line in this list where you have to play out a slipper at some point and then you blow it up with your own Benja to get it into the discard. If things are going, somewhat poorly, but like you can play that line to like get a 3 lore burst from Cinderella.
it's funny. Yeah, most of my experience, I have not played Amber Steel aggro, but I have played against Amber Steel aggro with the blue steel decks that we're going to talk about in a minute. And
Mm-hmm.
the Bell into Calhoun line has been quite problematic,
Yeah, I can see that being the case.
which is why I personally would go to 3 Vanessa, because at the very least it kind of holds the 3 strength cards
Right.
back, uh, just for the threat of the Rapunzel coming, on turn
Y-
4.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a good point. And Vanessa, Vanessa is sort of like Cinderella copies 5 and 6, at least in this list. Like she lets you sing the 2 mainstay songs a turn early if you don't have Cinderella, if you start on Daisy. So yeah, I think her stocks are on the way up despite being not very good against uh Coil and Ice Block red blue decks.
Suppose you are on the play,
Okay.
blind, and you have all 3 1-drops in your opening hand,
Mm-hmm.
but no song.
No song.
What's your which one are you leading on?
Cinderella.
Just the threat of it.
Just the threat of it. She forces people to change the way they play. Um, a lot of players, a lot of players will just respect that you have it. You maybe you ink a different 1-drop, like maybe you ink Simba and you play Cinderella. Like that's really telling them that you actually have the song because you could have played a different 1-drop that actually might have done something. Um, and you're probably going to draw a 3-cost song eventually. So just having her out there is really good. You might get a little punished. I guess I guess in set 6, like I'm starting Cinderella, every time blind on the play. You'd get punished a little bit, like if your opponent was playing red blue, like you don't get the quick lore, but you get to play the Daisy next turn. But now you even get a little punished if they play Bell on turn 1. Because you're probably not going to like double 1 and blast their Bell, especially if you like ink the Simba.
Yeah, no love for Ink, Cindy, play Simba, draw and discard Daisy.
Um, I
How
would
would it
have
be?
I would have to play games, but usually like when I was playing the whole new world aggro version, like my hierarchy of 1-drops was Cinderella, Daisy, Robin Hood, and I feel like that would kind of be the same here,
Yeah.
especially like if I want to save the Simba to discard a slipper later and I don't have a slipper.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think most people would probably lead on Daisy in that situation.
Um, I don't necessarily think they'd be wrong to do that. You can win a lot of games just by aggro cheesing people. Like if you play Daisy, if your line is, I guess the context of the rest of the hand matters a lot because if your line is Daisy Smee Piglet Daisy, you're just really really far ahead of anybody you're playing against. But if your line is this 1 2 3 double 2 that we talked about, like I like starting on Cinderella because if you draw a second 2-drop, then maybe you can play a 2-drop and a Daisy on turn 3 rather than a 3, which can be really threatening as well.
All right. Anything more to say about this one?
Nope. I hope to get some games in with it this week and see how it's shaping up.
Yeah. Probably play it after this podcast when I hop on and do some testing against Ray.
Sounds good.
All right. So let me pop over to a different screen
Alrighty.
and talk about uh my favorite deck so far of the set. So this is the blue steel aggressive deck, which has been known as the Kiwi Zoo.
Okay.
This version here is was posted by our good friend Adam. Goes by Harlan Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I've been quite enamored by this deck and other versions of it that are similar. Uh, the ability to both be proactive and disruptive, and steal back the play draw disparity by having Bell on turn one, which is more or less only answered by an opposing Bell on, if they lead with Bell going first is basically the only way to, answer it.
Right.
Bell is just such a menace against a lot of the decks, even against like the deck that you just showed. If you lead with Cindy and I lead with Popsicle into Bell, your Let the Storm Rage On doesn't do anything, and my Let the Storm Rage On will kill your Cindy and then trade with your Smee. My Bell will trade with your Smee on the way back.
Yeah, I don't really like that they have added a 3/3 for one to the game. That that it's like a 3/3 Singer 3 that costs 1 ink. Like,
yeah.
I think if I were to not play Amber Steel, I would start with this deck here. Alice was my favorite card they printed last set. She just did not make it into sleeves for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, so this deck has a lot going for it. First, in addition, well, Bell is the first thing. The second thing is that Calhoun's probably the second best card in the game when you're on the draw.
Probably.
Because it also survives Let the Storm Rage On, sung by Cindy.
Yeah.
Which is, another card that can capture the play. And then the third thing that this deck really has going on is it's like devastating when it goes first. Even just the curve of A1 drop into Smee, into Alice, into anything with Alice protecting your 4-drop from a removal spell is very challenging and quite taxing on your opponent to try and answer. Alice is an incredible card on the play.
Mm-hmm.
A suspect card in a lot of matchups on the draw, which is why I love the switch or the addition of Mulan. A lot of people play Hook in this spot because of the synergy with Mr. Smee.
Yeah.
But the Mulan allowing you to discard the Alice when you are on the draw in a matchup where you don't need it, or say against red-blue, discard the removal spells that would otherwise be pretty bad.
Right.
And then get 1 or 2 lore has been quite impressive. And even like Mulan can trade with Smee after Smee gets a damage counter on it.
Yeah,
I'm very impressed.
I think Mulan is going to be very good in these aggressive steel kind of decks. I don't know if there's room for her in like the slipper deck we just talked about. Like I think they're very, very close. I think Mulan's a little bit better, but I think the added synergy of being a prince for Simba gives him the nod in that deck.
Yes.
But in a deck like this, I like Mulan a lot better. And being able to discard these uninkable cards that really are more situational is I think it's an underrated thing that hasn't been explored enough in this game.
Yeah, very powerful. So the list that I started with was actually 1 card off of this.
Okay.
Because there's something illegal in this deck list.
Yeah, this deck has 3 Let the Storm Rage On, and that's not allowed.
Why is that not allowed?
Well, because for the same reason that I play Cindy on turn 1 without a song in my hand, like it's the reason you play for Let the Storm Rage On, because they have to respect that you have it, and the people who don't respect that you have it just lose the game on their first turn by playing a card. But if you don't have it and they call your bluff, then, well, I guess like with Bell, it's a little different because your character's still better than theirs. But if they like play into your Bell and think you don't have to let the Storm Rage on, like you just win that game if you have it. Like they're on the back foot, like they're going to be struggling to catch up. You're going to be deploying high lore threats every turn. You have a Singer going, like they wasted a whole card and a whole turn to let you to let you get rid of your uninkable card and draw another card.
Yeah, so something that I had to have repeatedly beat into me, a lesson that I had learned since set 4 with Ruby Amethyst, was regarding Flynn.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't like Flynn. Flynn's pretty bad on the draw. He's a 2/2.
Yeah.
He's pretty mopey.
Yeah.
But then the red purple greats, George, Ed, Erebos, the other players in our Discord that play red purple and are known for it, will say just collect your free wins.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes you're on the play. You play Chernobog's followers. You play Flynn. You play Sisu. And they didn't answer the Flynn, and he gains 6 to 9 lore, and you win the game.
Yep.
And you should just collect your free wins. That to me is what the Belle or Cinderella Let the Storm Rage On line represents.
Yeah.
In a similar fashion, you should just collect your free wins.
Yep. Just build your deck to have, to be able to snowball your high rolls into easy wins.
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm -1. My list would be -1 Cogsworth, +1 Let the Storm Rage On.
Yeah, I agree with that, because this looks pretty light on uninkables already. So we have 3 Calhoun, 4 Alice, and 3 Let the Storm Rage On. Like you're perfectly fine going up to 11 uninkables in a deck like this.
15.
Oh, and the docks too. Yeah. So going up to 15, where 4 of them are going to be free most of the time, and then 3 of them are going to cost 2, and then 4 of them are going to be non-2-drop 2-cost cards. These aren't the kind of cards that brick your hand and make you unable to play a game.
Yep. So that's the other versions that have been floating around. If you listen to the Arcticast, with friend Artivax and LD, he's on a version similar to this, a little different. He was a little lower on Alice, went a little heavier on the top end.
Is he on Tamatoas?
Yes. So
Okay.
he has Tamatoas in the list, no Alice's. The 4 drops are a little different. And the deck is retooled a little bit to include Along Came Zeus, because the deck is higher on 4 drops. Like he's got Grandma Tala and stuff like that.
Is he off Pluto?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Pluto gets a lot worse when you don't have Alice in your deck.
Yep. I agree with that. And so you could listen to the latest episode of the Articast if you want to hear more about his version of that deck, but it is also very good. It's probably better on the draw and better in grindy games, whereas this deck is definitely going to run away with more games on the play.
Yeah.
And be a little more inconsistent on the draw.
Yeah. But this deck is going to enable a lot of free wins on the play. So for the Sunday revival event in Anaheim, I just borrowed Justin's deck. I played 3 rounds to collect my 3 Dragonfires. I won all 3 of my games on the play, lost 3 very close ones on the draw, probably due to lack of experience and not knowing what I was doing. But on the play, it's very easy. You play a 1-drop, you play a 2-drop, you play Alice, you play Pluto, and the game's over.
Yep. It's a very, very powerful on the play set of lines.
Yep.
All right. Anything more to say about the Kiwis?
I think everybody should go into Discord and search American Woodcock in the gifts. It's safe for work. Don't worry. I would never lead you astray in that regard. And just enjoy the birds vibing.
Yeah. It's
because they are vibing.
Yeah, it is so funny. So I actually was the one that originally named the Blue Steel Aggro shell, but they were the bird in question is the American Woodcock, also known as the Timber Doodle,
or the bog sucker.
But our good friend over in the UK, Harlan, didn't know that and assumed they were Kiwis, and he's the content creator, so
the name stuck.
Yeah, his name won out. So it's been Kiwis ever since.
We're just trying to correct an injustice here.
Yeah. All right.
But American Woodcock, search it in the gifts. You'll see. You'll be very pleased with the vibing birds.
Yep. Okay. Our news section.
News section.
So at a event over in Europe, the set 8 product reveals happened.
Yep.
Do you think what do you think about revealing the product details for set 8 before set 7 is out?
Set 7, to quote the Black Eyed Peas, is so 2000 and late. Give me set 8. I'm done with set 7 already. I want set 8 stuff.
You moved on.
Yep. I want to know what that Tiana on the cover of the single player deck does.
A Tiana on the cover?
Yeah. I have.
There you go.
Little Tiana figure. So
I'm most interested in the Rapunzel dangling from her own hair.
Yeah, I'm interested.
A legendary Rapunzel vibes, another one.
I hope so.
I hope
it's good.
If it was a legendary, that it would be better or worse than the Amber set 1 Rapunzel.
If it's better than set 1 Rapunzel, it's going to be a very, very strong card. Because set 1 Rapunzel is the most expensive card, the most expensive non-foil, non-enchanted card in the game right now.
And that is drawing cards is very powerful.
And drawing cards is very powerful. And if she does something better than that, we'll hopefully be able to stop memeing on how Amber never gets any good cards.
Yeah.
So looking forward to see what that does. But
all right.
I'm hoping for Frog Tiana and Frog Naveen.
I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know anything about the frogs.
They spend the whole movie as frogs. In all of the Lorcana cards, they're humans.
All right.
But like 95% of the movie, they're frogs. Give me the frogs.
Interesting. All right. Maelstrom, the team, is back in the headlines. Unfortunately, Lorcana Bro and No I'm Not are moving on. Presumably 2 world-class cards to join the Legion of Doom. We don't know that. Maybe people do know that. We don't know that.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. Unfortunate for Maelstrom. Good for Lorcana Bro. No, I'm not. They're very good people. Very very nice fellas. Doing what's best for them, and you really can't fault them for that.
Yeah, the world-class cards. They're assembling the children of Thanos, the Black Order, in order to try and beat Ed.
Yeah. I don't know if it's gonna happen.
All the second through 6th best players in the game try to take number 1.
Have you seen the way Ed looks at people? It's terrifying.
It is terrifying. I playtest with that. It's scary.
With cameras on?
Yeah.
Oh man. I couldn't do it.
Lastly,
he's too intimidating.
Late breaking news, hot off the presses. Our good friend Melissa, the Lizard Kitty, has declared set 7 Red Blue as mid.
Red Blue is mid.
Thoughts?
As far as I'm aware, there's no additional context to this comment. She just came into a thread, said Red Blue is mid, left, and did not elaborate.
Yes.
Melissa has been on a red hot tear lately. She finished second in Southside Games 5K. She won
Purple Steel Dock.
With Purple Steel Dock. She won Prince Naveen, an Enchanted Prince Naveen event just yesterday, actually. So if Melissa says Red Blue is mid, I'm gonna listen to what she has to say.
I believe she also won an event in the weekends in between those.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think she's won an event the last 3 weekends in a row with the same perfectly clean 15-4 of Purple Steel Dock.
That's a clean 2-liner. That's more winning than you or I have been doing these past 3 weeks.
That's true.
So, Lizard Kitty says Red Blue mid. I think it'd be foolish to write her off.
Yeah. Another
red hot take though.
Yeah, another slow news week.
All right. Going back to news that we found out a long time ago. Pixar is coming in 2026. Which movies are you excited for?
WALL-E is my favorite movie. It's a Pixar movie, right?
It absolutely is a Pixar movie.
Yeah, so give me WALL-E and Eve. They remind me of my wife and I.
Fantastic. I hope we get these little guys. Aliens.
Minions.
Aliens.
Aliens. Oh,
Yeah.
from Toy Story.
From Toy Story, yeah.
All right.
Anything
No more
else?
news. Any more news?
Any more news? We're gonna get another co-op PvE game with Jafar, like what we saw with the Ursula set. So maybe that is a trend that will continue. Maybe we'll get one of these board game style Lorcana experiences every year. Did you play the first one?
I have it on the shelf behind me.
Okay.
Unopened. Never played it before.
I don't even have it on a shelf behind me or in my house.
It looked very
Unfortunately,
challenging.
I've never played it. Yeah, it looked difficult. It looked pretty fun. Looked like a good way to get people in the game who aren't necessarily interested in trying to, win over defeat their friends and family. Something I think I'd like to give a try. If my wife would want to try it out.
It does look like a ton of fun.
Snow White.
All right, I'm showing Snow White because, as I mentioned last week, Saturday I have a sealed event.
Yeah,
and I'm a little concerned about this Snow White in the sealed environment.
About hyper evasive.
This Snow White, fairest in the land.
Fairest in the land.
A 4-cost 2/2 quest for 2 that cannot be challenged.
Yeah,
Bumi, I scoured the file for every card that can interact with this Snow White.
Okay.
There are 15, and by interact, I'm going to air quote that. Anything that can even slow it down.
Even slow it down.
Yeah. So there are 15 cards on the list. How many can you name?
Out of order will trade down in a big way, but you'll get a card back.
Yeah. If you're not dead, out of order does work.
You can... Man, this set was very character heavy. Like, it was like 90% characters or something like that. You can double trouble it twice because you can't pick her for the same double trouble target.
That's true.
You can lock her down with one of the Elsas or Annas for a turn.
Yep. So you're going. So Elsa and Anna are both on the list.
Elsa and Anna are both on the list.
But with Elsa, you do need Anna. So
there are 15 cards that will slow this one down, huh?
I've got a Dreamborn link with the 15. So
you could slam a Calhoun Racer into a character, into their only other character when you have King Candy in play, and then they would have to choose and banish their Snow White.
I did not think of that.
Oh man. These are the lines you got to see if you wanna win 6 boosties, Dave.
Yeah,
there are gonna be killers at that event. You told me about all those killers.
King Candy's in.
I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel. I don't know the set that extensively.
All right, are you ready for this list?
I'm ready for the list.
Snow White answers. I'm a human. All right.
Let's see the picture. Export the image.
Let me just do it this way.
Okay.
All right. Anna we named.
Okay.
Panic. When you play this character, you may move up to 2 damage counters from chosen character to another opposing character.
Okay, that might actually be a really good one.
This panic is it's like you hope to open it because
yeah, that card's actually really good and limited.
Yeah, this is the easiest way to do it.
Okay, Maurice and his machine.
And you didn't have to play his machine. and then play Maurice, and you could take it out.
Okay.
Maid Marian,
If they challenge your allies.
if they challenge your allies twice.
I think if they are challenging your allies, you need to stop them from doing that and say, come on, man. Like,
Oh
what?
yeah, you
What
need
are you
to get in the
doing?
racing situation. And
Yeah. All right. What does Chernabog do?
the Chernabog is a 2/6 quest for 1 for 5 on Inkable. When you play this character, each opponent chooses and exerts one of their readied characters. That
Okay.
character doesn't ready at the start of their next turn.
All right. Got her.
2 Queen of Hearts in play.
And then they play Snow White.
And then they play Snow White.
Easy.
Tweedledee and Tweedledum. 5 cost 4/4 quest for 2 Inkable. When this character quests, you may return chosen damaged character to their hand.
All right.
So
Just need a way to get damage on her
just
every turn.
Need a way to get damage. Bagheera, same situation. You have to be ahead, and they banish the Bagheera, and it'll take out the Snow White.
Yeah. I hope they don't do that.
Somehow you missed the Beast, frustrated designer, with 2 items.
Yeah, the one that has to sacrifice 2 items to cast launch. All right.
The Elsa with an Anna we mentioned.
Okay.
8 costs.
8 costs Daisy Duck. All right.
Daisy Duck, and then if your opponent only has 1 character in play when you ink a card.
Oh God.
That's doing it the hard way.
That sounds difficult. And then Lyle Tiberius Rourke, they have to
another 8 drop, 8 costs.
That will clear her on your 9th turn. Easy. These Snow Whites are cooked. They got nothing.
Yeah, Wake Up Alice.
This
is actually perhaps a reasonable one. Return chosen damage characters to their owner's hand.
Okay. How are we getting 1 damage on Alice?
Like Double Trouble or
Double
the Queen.
Okay.
You can shift the Queen in. There is a 2 cost Queen. You can shift this one.
You can get this one under the first.
The 7 cost removal spell out of order.
Mm-hmm.
And the Amethyst Coil.
All right.
Do you know what the Amethyst Coil does?
It moves 1 damage when you ink.
Yes.
All right.
So
slow.
You need to get the coil into play. You need to get 2 damage on your own on something.
Yep.
And then you can move 2 over to Snow White.
All right. So what you're saying is, if you open Snow White's at the sealed event that Dave is attending, don't put them in your deck because there are 15 answers to her in the format.
Well, it's an uncommon too.
Yeah. So, again, if you're at the sealed event that Dave is at, do not put Snow Whites in your deck.
Yeah.
Right?
So I've in the context of that Snow White. Now I know there's no sideboarding.
Yeah. Actually, one. Okay. In the context of that Snow White, what are we doing with the Return of Hercules?
Putting the 8 drops into play.
Putting the 8 drops into play. All right.
I don't know.
And whatever they're putting into play is not going to be scary or good.
It's probably just going to be a 5/6.
Yeah.
A quest for 1.
Okay. I have a fun game for you.
All right.
Can you go back to all the multicolored cards and bring up the new Mirabelle? Right.
This one?
Right. Yep, that one right there. Mirabelle, evasive, singer 5, 3 cost, 1/3. Can you name all of the songs in the game that can take advantage of Mirabelle's singer 5 ability for the full amount?
So an amber
and amethyst.
And amber or amethyst card.
Songs that cost 5 to take advantage of Mirabelle Madrigal being a amber amethyst singer 5.
The most expensive one that costs 5 or less than amber that I can think of costs 4, and it's
Mhm.
Hakuna Matata.
Right?
That's is there an amber one that costs 5?
Nope. No, there is not. And there's not an amethyst one that costs 5. But there is
2 sing
one.
togethers, at least.
Sing Together doesn't count. I'm not counting those. There's one Amber Amethyst song that costs 5. And it's a card that I hate.
Oh, is this the family madrigal?
Sure is. It is the one song in her colors that takes full advantage of her Singer 5 ability.
Look at the top 5 cards of your deck.
Get one madrigal, one
song.
song. Yep.
Put the rest back.
On top.
I was more interested in this interaction with that same song.
What's the interaction there?
You can't get you can't get
You
it back.
can't get it back, I know. I don't understand. Like, I was stewing about this more than I should have. And like, I reached the conclusion that the first Mirabelle should have been a 1-cost Singer 3, 1/3 evasive. And the Family Madrigal should have cost 3.
And with no lore.
I don't know.
Sings.
She can, I don't know, probably doesn't need a lore. She probably doesn't need to be a 1/3 Singer 3 that can quest for lore. That might be too good. But this color pair isn't very good, and also like you'd have to put a bunch of madrigals in your deck. But like she can't even get her song back.
This just gets friends back, right? Friends on the other side.
Yeah, friends on the other side, or this is my family, or it calls me, or Poor Unfortunate Souls is not a terrible one. Like I think with like some major numbers tweaks, the Madrigal song that could be really, really exciting, but instead it's not.
That's funny.
Which makes me sad. Because the Madrigal. That's all I got. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Any lore content for you this weekend?
I might try to hit up a pre-release event sealed, but I might not actually do that because I don't really enjoy limited in this game.
Could be quite easy if you get Snow Whites.
Well, what do you mean? We're not putting those in our deck. There are too many answers to her. Yeah, you could open 3 Snow Whites and they just can never clear her, and then you win your 6 boosties easy and go home.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or you could play against 3 Snow Whites every round and just be really sad. But if you play against 3 Snow Whites in the first round, you're probably not going to play against 3 Snow Whites in the second round because those people are all in the winner's bracket.
There's no turn 2 ramp in this set, right?
Thank goodness.
You're safe from that?
From a turn 3 Snow White?
Yeah.
I think so. I'd have to take a closer look at the busted blue cards that maybe we glossed over.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us for a second week. We appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in. It's always good chatting with you, Dave. You have a great rest of your evening.
Yeah, you too. See you, Bumi.
All right, bye-bye.